Oh my God, where's my phone? What if Rob Ford is calling me right now? What if he's calling me right? You know, I was just thinking, we're about 23 minutes or so away from the 50th anniversary of the assassination of John F. Kennedy. But to even it out, the universe also reminds us that it's only about 4 days away from the birth of Jimi Hendrix. Now, Peter Mansbridge and the National did an incredible special on the anniversary of the assassination of Kennedy. Take a look at this.
Kennedy and his family had been the Camelot presidency. All seemed possible. They were young, and so many of us in the boomer generation were energized by the excitement around them. The race for space, the promise of the moon, the idea of the Peace Corps, traveling the world to help others, initiatives that crossed borders and infected millions.
72 hours that changed America. And the man who brought it to us, Peter Mansbridge, is walking in. He'll be with us right after the break. We'll see you in a sec. Oh, hey, Peter! Mansbridge in the chair next. We'll be right back. Here on the program. So like we said off the top of the show, just as soon as this program's done and the clock strikes midnight, then it will be the anniversary, the day of the assassination of John F. Kennedy. And that story, you know, we talked about 72 hours to change America, brought to you by this handsome fellow, Peter Mansbridge. Hey, man, good to see you.
Thank you, George.
How was the journey from the 4th floor up to the 8th floor at CBC?
It's always great to come up here. You know, we're just off the air. Thursday night's always a big night at issue and everything. But, you know, you've got a great studio.
It's nice, eh?
It's like twice as big as my studio.
No, it's
But only half as big as Mercer's.
Yeah, that's true. Mercer does have... I think he shares it with Cherry. That could be why. Why 72 hours? Because most people think it's the moment.
Right. Well, I mean, things changed over that weekend, right? Friday was the assassination. Saturday was the, you know, the shock of it all. And Lee Harvey Oswald in custody and impromptu news conferences. They basically got news conferences with the guy captured for the murder. Sunday, Jack Ruby shoots Oswald. He's dead. Monday is the burial of John F. Kennedy in Washington, and the nation mourns, and the gun carriage taken through the streets of Washington to Arlington Cemetery. So you put that over Monday or Friday to Monday, and it's 72 hours.
What I loved about it is one of the things you're so good at, one of the many, is that you can tell me what's happening. I know you're invested in the story, but you're just telling me what's happening. But in this one, I get to see you. Like, your story is a part of this as well, and that must have been a really interesting experience.
Well, you know, for my generation, I was 15 at the time. I got home that day from school. My mother's there, you know, weeping on the couch watching this. She'd been downtown Ottawa in Murphy Gamble's, one of the old department stores, and she suddenly had seen people crying. And she didn't know at that point what had happened. She found out, so she goes home. Everybody's crying on the bus. You know, she gets home, she turns on the television. CBC's putting Walter Cronkite on from CBS. She's watching all that, and then my sister and I come home, and my little brother's there. And, you know, that whole weekend we sat on the couch and watched television. And there were all those dramatic events that changed America and changed the world. You know, you go from one president to another, and this president, everybody of our generation had a lot invested in him. Young guy, you know, first president born of the 20th century, war hero, beautiful wife. She was 31 when at inauguration, so just a couple of years older at assassination. And everybody bought into that family and the hopes and dreams of what could come in the future. And then suddenly, gone.
In recent years, the conversation shows more and more in that family. For the longest time, it was Camelot, and they were lionized. Then it was a lot of the sexual stuff. But then there's more in the Kennedy policies and foreign policy. What do you make of the evolution of the narrative around that family?
Well, people like to grasp for the good side. There were issues, there were problems, and not just you know, problems in the bedroom. There were problems, you know, in policy terms. You know, Bay of Pigs, Vietnam. You know, Kennedy was the first to get into Vietnam seriously. Everybody likes to think, oh, well, he never would have let it go as far as LBJ did, after him, but who knows? You know, it's one of the unknowns. But there were so many exciting things happening. You know, the race for space, the Peace Corps, the dynamism of the Kennedy family, just the excitement that surrounded it. And our generation was thinking, wow, man, our time has come. This is it for us. And suddenly, all that was gone, replaced by what? A generation protesting against a war.
Right.
Not just in the U.S., all around the world.
You know, you mentioned the Oswald thing. A generation that saw this happen on TV. Mm-hmm. People watched a man get murdered on television.
That's right.
That's enough to change. I mean, there wasn't really a counterculture before this thing.
That's right. That was the Sunday morning when Ruby kills Oswald. Television, in some ways, came of age that weekend. I mean, up to that point, television was a thing for, you know, comedies and entertainment and the zany antics. And then suddenly television realized that weekend, you know, there's so much more we can do. We can cover news events. Now, there've been some with space shots, but this was a weekend, unlike any other weekend. Mm-hmm. And suddenly news divisions started to invest in their being able to cover news live. And there's like, not much like this. I mean, you can't see anything like this. You know, in Dallas, you know, obviously the famous thing about this is Ruby shooting Oswald, but it's also this guy, this cop, this Dallas cop, in that whole outfit right up to the cowboy hat. Yeah. His suit and hat are in the museum on the 6th floor where Oswald was taking the shots. They're up there, the actual suit and hat sitting there. Ruby's hat is sitting there in the museum.
So it's crazy. And you got to walk us through it. Take a look at another clip from the show here. Look at this.
Fortunately, I was probably 15 to 20 feet away from the president when it happened.
See this picture? If you've ever studied November 22nd, you've almost certainly seen it. Appears to be seconds after the shots were fired. A young couple on the ground shielding their kids.
And I didn't know what was going on, so I just grabbed the boy and fell on him in the hopes that there wasn't a maniac around.
They're the Newmans. They still live in Dallas, in their 70s now, and they love to talk about that day. But get out your wallet if you want to hear their story. It's $500 a pop.
That's what I love that you told that part of it. There has been a real exploitation of that event.
It's the strangest feeling when I've been to Dallas a couple of times, and you know, the first thing that's striking is everything's so small, it's so compact. Not the image you have in your mind about what it was like. I've stood in the window, you know, where from the angle that Oswald was at, and it's not a long shot. It's a pretty short shot, really. But nevertheless, as everybody comes back each year around this time, and especially this year with the 50th, those who are still alive who were there that day are available to interview. Mm-hmm. But some of them, like these guys, they wanted $500. I said, you gotta be kidding. Come on. But anyway, they did, and there's a little trolley that drives around.
You didn't pay, right?
On what, the $500?
Yeah.
No. But as soon as it happened, I thought, you know what? I can have more fun with the fact I haven't talked to them than paying the $500. But the trolley taking people around sounds bizarre, but actually I went on it for 90 minutes. You actually learn a lot. Right. You go everywhere.
More with Peter Mansbridge right after this. I've never been to Dallas. You're back here on the program. Peter Mansbridge is with us. You got to go to the CBC website and see his 72 Hours That Changed America story on JFK. There's a couple things I want to talk to you before you go back, but just Oswald, 24, Sirhan, who shot Bobby Kennedy, 24, John Wilkes Booth, 26. People forget they're just kids, too.
Just kids. And so many of those, you know, Wilkes Booth, of course, was Lincoln, but, you know, that set off, that Kennedy assassination set off the next Kennedy assassination with Sirhan. Martin Luther King.
4 presidents killed, 5 presidents hit, 5 attempts. If you're president, the target, that's why the security has to be what it is.
When you look at that, the picture, if you see that dock and you see Kennedy's arriving at the airport, he climbs into the limousine that he would die in. Last time you ever see a U.S. president step into an open limousine. That was the last time. Always a protective bubble now.
Before you leave, I would be remiss if I didn't ask you, and this National Post editorial was amazing, right? And now back to a regularly scheduled scandal. Between the Prime Minister's office and the Rob Ford thing, what a time to be an anchor, man.
It's an incredible time because you're looking at leadership in your city, in this case Toronto's, or in your country, in this case what happened inside the Prime Minister's office, the highest office in the land, with the most senior people around him. And he's saying that he didn't know anything about this. You know, he only understood, he only knew that Duffy owed money and told him to pay it. And meanwhile, you have all these people on his senior staff seemingly involved in what was, the RCMP thinks, an illegal act.
What was it like sitting across from Mayor Rob Ford with Doug Ford just glaring?
Yeah.
That was such a strange shot, him just glaring.
It was a strange shot. Part of the reason was we had 3 cameras, and 2 of them when we got back.
It was a great shot.
Yeah, I know. But we had 3 cameras when we got back an hour or so before the broadcast. 2 of the camera cards wouldn't ingest into the system, so we really only had 1 shot, and it was that one, which was a cutaway camera. You know,
staring at you.
Andy Hinsenberg was sort of moving back and forth, taking shots, never thinking the whole thing would end up on the air. But that's the one we had to use. But it did give a certain kind of drama to it with Doug Ford. He doesn't blink, you know? He doesn't blink. I'm sitting there talking to Rob Ford. He's here, and I can tell he's not even blinking. You know, he had to be there. He said he had to be sitting there. But 90% of the interview was with Rob Ford. But he's like this. So I was never quite sure what was about to happen next.
Strange days indeed.
Yeah.
Do you ever feel like it's just a surreal life these days with those 2 stories?
Hey, life is confusing at times, and always challenging to report on, always challenging for journalists. People demand information. They demand, you gotta ask the question I want to ask. Right. You know, I have lots of people haven't been shy telling me what they wanted to hear from Rob Ford, and who were unhappy they didn't ask their questions. I was just trying to get him on the record on certain things. But it's the same on any issue with our social media today. But they're not far away ever. In fact, there's stuff coming in for you right now about why you haven't asked me about the fact that I gave you that jacket as a hand-me-down.
First of all, Nigel Wright gave me this jacket, okay? Peter Mansbridge, everybody. 72 hours that changed America, CBC.ca. What a pleasure, man. Thank you. We'll be right back.